Welcome to the Running for Real podcast, where each week we bring you a conversation designed to help you create positive change in your life, community, and planet. It's a collective of conversations about running, the climate emergency, and social justice. Running for Real is for the brave, for those with courage and vulnerability. United by our love of running, we're driving momentum towards some of the really tough challenges we're facing as humanity. So come join me, Tina Muir, and let's get started. Oh, my friends, you are in for a treat today. I am so excited to share my guest with you today. She is a wonderful human being, someone I've been trying to get to know for a while now, and I am just thankful we had her on here. The interview wasn't as long as I wanted it to be. I had a hard stop time that I had to be done for, and I really wanted to keep going. In fact, I did, and definitely pushed Steve to be frantic a little bit to do what he needed to do, but it was so worth it, and I just love the direction we went in. I didn't get to even a quarter of the things I wanted to ask her about, but every word that came out of her mouth was filled with so much just passion and wise words and thinking and reflection and introspection. I mean, it was just beautiful. I'm really excited to introduce you to Kriste Peoples today. She is one of my ultra teammates. She is a meditator. She is an athlete. She's a trail runner, and she has so much more to her, which you're going to learn a lot about that today. This episode is going to have a little something for everyone. We spend a decent chunk of the first half of the episode talking about meditation and mindfulness, although not in the same way to how we've covered it in the past. So I think you're going to find this very different and very enjoyable. I am going to just take a moment to thank our sponsors, and we right to the episode with Kriste Peoples. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been working with Tracksmith for a few years now. I've been telling you about what kind of company they are, but I wanted today to give you yet another example of how they are doing this. So you've heard me talking about the other podcast I host with Knox Robinson called Running Realized. We are wrapping up our first season 1, with episode 12 coming in a few weeks. And over the course of this season, for every guest that we have on, we have been donating to causes related to the topic of what we are talking about. So that's groups like Jeunesse Trek Club. We have done the Asian Mental Health Collective, the Hole in the Wall Gang, Sunrise Movement, Earth Circle, too many to mention. Each of the guests have selected something. Athlete Ally is another one. Too many to mention that we have been donating to. Now, I've mentioned that Tracksmith is actually supporting this podcast, allowing it to be possible, and in essence covering those donations. But not only that, they are matching those donations. So that is a massive amount of money that Tracksmith is donating to these organizations that are supporting these important topics. They don't get anything out of this, they just are doing it because it's the right thing. So I really wanted to emphasize that. When I talk about Tracksmith being a genuine brand, I mean it. And in addition to that, their clothes are incredibly comfortable. The quality is very high. I've been talking a lot about the session shorts. They are my favorite thing to wear in the summer. In fact, I am wearing a pair right now. I love to wear them during the day, and I love to wear them on my runs, and usually both. You can get yourself $15 off your first order of $75 or more by using code TINA15 at tracksmith.com. Go check out what they've got there. There is all kinds of cool stuff, and I know you're going to love it. Kriste, as much as the world tried to stop us from having this conversation, we are not only on our third try lucky, but even on this third try, we had massive problems, but we somehow made it work. We overcame it, and I feel like a tornado is going to come through or something and wipe one of our internets out. But bar that, welcome to the Running for Real podcast.
Thank you for having me here. I think it's going to be a tsunami of great conversation and energy, and the interwebs just got hold of that and was trying to block it. So
I mean, even just your response right there, my listeners are going to be like, oh, yep. Tina's found another one of her people. Like, I love that response. I am, so excited to dig in here. and you are my ultra teammate, and I love sharing a team with you and being able to follow your journey. You're also a mindfulness meditation teacher, which I want to go into some of to start with, but so I've had multiple guests on who have been meditation teachers, including Oren J. Sofer and Jeff Warren. I don't know if you've heard of either of those. They're primarily on the 10% Happier app. But they did, we did some talks about meditation. However, even with that, even with me breaking it down with these two incredible meditation teachers, still comes back with the excuse. Well, not, I don't want to say excuse for a lot of people, because I do this too, but it's like, I get it. I understand why it's helpful for me, but I just don't have the time. And I always ask these guests this whenever we talk about mindfulness. So what is your response there when someone says, it sounds great in theory, but I don't have time?
Mm-hmm. I think, mindfulness has become a word, in recent years. It's highly commodified, and many people take it to mean that you're sitting on a cushion and you're all blissed out and you spend an hour every day just, in the clouds or whatever. And then you're perfect and peaceful the rest of the day. But really, mindfulness can be found in an instant, right? Because mindfulness is about, in the way that I approach it and that I practice it, mindfulness is about the continual returning to presence, or the moments that you find yourself like frazzled and outside of yourself or beside yourself or whatever. You can come back to the present moment through the breath, through your awareness. So it is mindfulness off of the cushion, right? So mindfulness and meditation are two things, just like the hand and the glove, right? They can exist independently of each other, but they don't necessarily have to, but they work very well together. So mindfulness goes hand in glove very well, but I don't want to conflate the two or make it seem as though you can't have one without the other. Because mindfulness can mean, let's say, I say something that might be off-putting to you. I remember you shared a post. You were outside with your baby and somebody thought you were your baby's grandmother.
Yes.
No, let's say.
Now you've just outed that to the world. In case all those who didn't hear it, they now my podcast listeners know. Yeah.
But if that person were me, if I said that, I was not being mindful. But if I were having a moment of mindfulness, meaning awareness and clarity, then I would realize in retrospect, wow, that was insensitive. Let me check back in with Tina and acknowledge my gaffe. And see where she is with that, and let her know that I didn't intend to be hurtful in any way. That's mindfulness.
Can you imagine if that 13-year-old boy knocked on my door to just be like, I just want to, I'd be like, my jaw would hit the ground. Like what?
Right.
You must be the most Zen, thoughtful teenager ever. So yeah, but yes, that definitely gets the point across.
Right. And imagine if that was, a 31-year-old big kid, 41 older person to come back and say, Tina, when we had that conversation the other day, it occurs to me that I might have not been as skillful as I'd hoped to be. That's mindfulness. That is being able to recognize in a moment what's arising, what's up.
Do apologies come into that then? Like, is that a
Absolutely.
form of apology?
Forgiveness is a form of awareness. So awareness says that, something it's not sitting right with me around that interaction the other day. I wasn't really being conscious in the moment of how I might have been coming across based on how she responded to me. Let me check in and acknowledge that could have been less skillful than I had hoped. Like, that's mindfulness, is being with that thought or that thing, whatever is arising in the moment. And so in this example that we're using, it would be an awareness of, oh, maybe I misspoke yesterday. Maybe I was a little offensive, or what I said wasn't received well. So that's the awareness in the moment, because it's arising. You know how we have those thoughts all the time, like something I said or did kind of comes back, and I can either look at it, or I can avoid it, I can downplay it, I can otherwise push it off. Mindfulness says, don't turn away from it, be with it, and get curious about what is coming up in that moment. Because I'm not just thinking about that exchange for nothing, likely, if it's bringing up a real feeling in me. So mindfulness says, okay, I'm aware that I probably was insensitive, because I'm checking in with myself. I'm remembering that your response was something that also caught my attention in hindsight. And I'm going one further to reach out to you. Yeah. Mindfulness doesn't say that, like, oh, I'm going to go make amends for everything that I've done. But mindfulness says, let's be with what is. And this is what's happening in the moment. I am noticing that something was off about that.
Can I ask you a question then, a difficult question here? Like, so what comes to mind for me when you're saying that? As a Black woman, white people quite often will say something insensitive, some kind of microaggression, and they might sense in that moment they've said something, insensitive. And then they might be replaying like, oh, why did you say that? Like, like you just said, like being aware of it. What's the difference there between that person, that white person there just saying, oh, I said something wrong, I should go like explain myself and talk about what I was doing. But then that isn't often what people want, of like, just, going on and on and on and on about it. Like, just like say sorry, and then like sincerely say sorry, and then move on. So thoughts on that there?
Well, mindfulness again is like being with whatever is arising in the moment. And the practice of it is about cultivating that capacity, right? So on both sides of that, you have the white person in your example, in this exchange, maybe realizes something or feels a certain way about it. It's not about trying to fix or change what happened. It's about really developing that capacity to be with the difficulty. So why did that person say or do a certain thing? So why did I do that thing that caused this challenge between us or in me? What's beneath that? What is my feeling there? What is my understanding there? What do I actually believe? So it's not necessarily about going back to apologize, to try and fix or whatever, because a lot of times these exchanges happen in passing and we can't even find the person. But we can be stuck in rumination about why what I did was wrong, why I'm a bad person or whatever. And that intensifies or creates the condition of suffering, or of more alienation, right? So it makes it harder for us to bridge the divide.
Yeah, sure.
And so, and on my side of that exchange, as a Black woman, what I have often had to do, where mindfulness would come in an exchange like that, where I feel, you know, challenged, up against it, upset, I have to resort. My mindfulness practice would empower me to use myself as a resource, knowing that all I can control is my own response to this.
Yep.
And I don't have to avoid my upset or my anger. In fact, if anger is coming up in me, again, I can be with my anger. I can be with whatever emotions come up. But mindfulness is about having your emotions, again, rather than pushing them away, having them, but not letting them have you. Right.
Yes.
So if I have the anger, if I experience anger as a result of what happens, or I've experienced a feeling of despair or sadness or fear or whatever, it's important to give myself permission to have that experience of it without pushing it away, and also taking my next steps in a conscious way, so I'm responding rather than reacting. Oh, you said, the reaction is, oh, you said this thing, I'm ready for you because this is what you do. And we get stuck in that same cycle. However, if I have my anger, I'm aware that I am in this place, I'm able to be more present with it and respond with more consciousness to that particular incident, rather than here's another reason why you people all do the thing, or why we can't ever have nice things, or why X, Y, Z, because the conversation goes nowhere.
Yes.
That way. And so it's really important to be able to meet ourselves in the moment and work it through from there, and then see if we can, and then maybe, moving that out to other people. Being in the moment together is a miracle in and of itself. But if we're truly in the moment together, that's where the point of connection can really happen, rather than, being stuck in these old cycles and old stories that really don't go anywhere.
Yeah. With those old cycles, those old stories that don't really go anywhere, I just want to give people, I've been committed to morning meditations, although not every day. I want to add that I have two young kids. I've had to let go, like you said, be with your feelings of some days when my kids wake up at 5:30 and I've got up at 5:15, it's not going to happen at that time. Giving myself peace for that. But even doing that, it feels like once you start meditating or trying to be aware, you're like, well, but I'm doing it. I guess it is kind of like running in that way of, you're like, I'm doing it, but why am I not? Why can't I do what you just said there and be with my thoughts and be with my body, be with my feelings, be with what I'm experiencing, be present. Instead, I'm still getting carried away. I'm not getting any better at this, even though it's with running, tiny little increments. So yeah, talk about that, the connection there.
Because it's a practice. It's not a perfect, Tina. It's a practice. And so with this, there is no goal of
There's no finish line.
Sub-reactionary meditation. What? PR meditation.
You have
PR
graduated. Yeah.
No. But the thing is, mindfulness or meditation in and of itself, that people, I don't think, fully grasp sometimes. People who are new to it are entertaining the idea of meditation, is that it can be hard, it can be boring, it can be dull, it can be painful, right? And so because there's this analogy that I love to use, like when we were growing up, we had this pool in the backyard. It was above ground, and it was kind of like like metal walls, and you could kind of, if you shook it too much, it would collapse.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, we used to be, I mean, I don't even know if they make them anymore. I'm sure it was like dangerous, but so we would walk around inside the perimeter of this pool, and we would walk until we had developed this current that almost pushed us along, right? And then we would stop and turn, and then because of the momentum, we would get knocked off our feet.
Yeah.
And so this is a similar experience we have when we're starting meditation. We have set up all these patterns in motion, all these behaviors and beliefs and ideas about who we think we are and who we should be and where we should be in our lives. And then we stop and turn toward that, right? All of these things that have been driving us and pushing us along all of our lives, these systems that we've put in place and that the culture has put in place, that our upbringing, our education has put in place, that our training has established in us, right? Mm-hmm. And we've internalized all this stuff, but we sit down, we go in and we turn toward all that. Just like you said, it's easy to get knocked off. It's easy to find ourselves adrift from the place that we wanted to be because we haven't been conscious to a lot of this stuff. It's like learning how to drive. At first, it's like, everybody be quiet. I got to concentrate because I'm driving. Mm-hmm. I got to have my hands at 10 and 2. I got to look all over the place. But now we're like, we're having conversations. We're writing things. We're checking our phones. We're putting on like things in the car while we're going. Sometimes we don't even remember how we got there.
Yeah.
Because we have done it so much that we have internalized the process without having to think about it so much. Mm-hmm. That's why we can do all this extra stuff. And so imagine, decades of just thinking and having to be at certain places and hit certain marks in our lives. We got a lot of stuff that we've built up. And so I like to say, to your earlier question about like, how do we do it when we don't have time? I like to say that it's important to really redefine what meditation can mean for you. It doesn't have to be that picture of being at the mountaintop or in the rock garden with like the Japanese flute music playing. Yeah. You can be rushing out of your house. Like you got your mug in one hand and 2 kids in the other and your tote bag in the other and your shoes in the other hand and all that. And so you have all these hands and you can catch yourself in a moment saying, I am already out of my mind rushing.
Yeah.
I'm late. I am flustered. In that moment, you can say, okay, let me just stop for 5 seconds and just breathe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 5 seconds. Now, you would be very hard pressed to not have 5 seconds in your day. If you don't have 5 seconds, you got bigger problems than not being able to meditate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like make it work for you. Like allow yourself the opportunity to take moments. Mm-hmm. You don't have to sit every day. Now, granted, a formal practice involves sitting with some frequency and developing that over time. And you can still reap some benefits by allowing yourself just a few seconds to start and to touch in to the spaciousness of that 5 seconds, that 1 minute of just being with yourself in a moment. And that can help you recalibrate.
Thank you to Picky Bars for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I am over the moon to be working with Picky Bars. I pay for a Picky Club membership myself, and I use their products most days of the week. They have all kinds of fun bars. My favorites are Seed for Seed and Chai and Catch Me. I also eat the granola very often, including the PB&J, which I think most people who try their granolas are obsessed with that PB&J flavor. They have quick energy, sustained energy. They are delicious. They are in all kinds of foodie flavors. I mean, PB&J, come on. They're trail ready. They are easily chewable and they don't melt all over the place. They are just great to be able to take on those runs or those hikes. And they're confident about the ingredients that go in them. What all the ingredients are, and you can feel confident in that. I mean, just go to pickybars.com/Tina. You will see millions, okay, maybe not millions, but you get my point, of very, very, very positive reviews. They've got all kinds of cool stuff that they're saying there. And with code TINA, you can get 20% off your order. Now, if you sign up for the Picky Club, you will get 20% off the Picky Club in addition to up to 30% off that you will get by joining the Picky Club. So use code TINA by going to pickybars.com/Tina. You can go check out some of the items there. You can go sign yourself up for the Picky Club, or you can just get yourself a 20-bar mix pack or some granola. You can get the bundle of different things. It is just a great place to be. Another great supportive company who is really doing cool things out in the running space. You can go to pickybars.com/Tina to go get yourself some. Do you think it's, I don't want to say easier. This reminds me of the meditation I did this morning. And I've mentioned this many times that I use 10% Happier because I like that it's 5 to 15 minutes. Like, there's even 1 minute ones on there. But Jeff Warren this morning on the one I did said something about it goes from finding time to creating a meditative way of living, which I thought was, yes. I really loved hearing that. But do you think it's realistic for us if someone has, and I promise the listeners, like we're gonna tie this back into running in a minute. I'm selfishly loving this conversation, but if you are more waiting for the running stuff, we'll get there in a minute. But is it more likely that you will be able to find or be able to give yourself, and as ridiculous as it sounds, remember and be motivated to take those 5 seconds or that 1 minute if you are having a formal practice? Like for me, until I started, like I kept hearing around, be aware while you're brushing your teeth, be aware while you're driving, feel the steering wheel, while your kid is playing hide and seek, while they're trying to find you, take that moment to be present. But then it was only once I notice a definite correlation with the sitting down for even if it's 5 to 5 minutes, even if it's 1 minute, the formal practice, and then my being able to take more moments throughout the day. Is there a correlation there? Like, is it realistic for someone to say, I'm just going to do the taking moments part, or is that just not going to happen?
I think we got to ditch this idea of realistic. What's realistic?
Okay.
Because your realistic is not my realistic, probably, and is not all your listeners' realistic necessarily. And that's also examining, like, what's realistic for you? Like for me, it's realistic, or it makes more sense to like slow it down, to dial it down a bit so that I can be aware of this one thing I'm supposed to be doing rather than going on autopilot. So that's what makes more sense for my life. And so then by extension, it's realistic that I would have opened myself more to moments of that reflection or that awareness or whatever. But for somebody who is not inclined to have those moments, or is like consciously looking to take more pauses or become more aware in small moments, then it might be more feasible or make more sense to just kind of go, cold turkey. I was going to say hard turkey, but to go in and just slice through that daily schedule and say, okay, I am making 5 minutes right now, or starting with that 1 minute. And for that, for the person who's oriented toward their days that way, then setting up that time makes more sense. So there are lots of different ways to the cushion, and I don't want to say one is more realistic versus the other, but I can say it's not realistic to think that once you start meditating, it's like a one and done, or because you sit how many ever minutes a day that you're going to be free from being annoyed, from being an asshat, from being, thoughtless in a moment, or from being depressed.
Yeah.
This is about being able to be okay, to be able to hold all of the things, and to be aware that, oh my gosh, I am way off track in terms of in terms of what I was supposed to be doing with my work today, or in my relationship, or in my eating habits, or whatever. Wow. Let me come back to that. That's what, the meditation and mindfulness helps us do. It helps us be present to all the messiness of our lives, without all the judgment and the comparison and the rumination, or the getting stuck in all of the thoughts.
Yes. So well said. Thank you. Thank you so much. I do want to transition. Actually, let's talk about one of the things that you mentioned to me before we started recording this, and it kind of ties into what we were saying here. You said about how running can help build bridges of understanding. What are your thoughts there? Like, you say that running can help build bridges. I mean, is that a good example, what we were just talking about there? Are you talking in terms of analogies, or are you talking in terms of just the commitment that runners take to, practice, essentially?
Well, I think it's a number of those, because what comes up first is that when we run together, when we get out in open space, and for me, I am on the trails a lot. And so my jam is taking women who are beginning their trail running journey, taking them out, helping them feel more empowered to run trails, helping them to understand, how we can do it safely and with fun and joy and all that. And also preparation for really developing a running practice or habit or training of their own, right? And so when we get out beyond the parking lot, beyond the cell phone preoccupation, and we start sweating together, we're able to drop into a space of connection that is very different than we would otherwise have, on a different ground, And so that way, when we are able to strip away a certain amount of distraction and pretense or artifice, we become more real to each other in that moment. And when you're on the trails, your safety is tied into the safety of the group. So if somebody's out there and sprains something, or, is low on resources, water or fuel or whatever, then it falls to the group to really come together to help that person. Because I like to say, okay, we got 6 runners in this bunch. I'm coming back with 6, and I hope it's you. But in those spaces, we get to say, we get to really spend time with, how are you doing? What's your life like? What's up for you right now? and it doesn't have to always be deep, but it is connective in a way. It builds bridges toward each other because we are immediately, we are in community. We are caring for each other in ways that we don't really know until somebody starts struggling. And it's like, I got you, or, hey, here's something. I've got a first aid kit. Let's do this. Pause for a moment, whatever. We come together and we pay attention to each other. And so by doing that, you open up greater understanding. And so another thing that happens with running in terms of understanding and building bridges is where I live in Colorado, we have lots of open space parks. And on the ballot every so often, there's a box you can check. Should we use X amount of money to purchase more open space for this or that? Should this land be developed or converted for blah, blah, blah? And the thing that you come to realize the more that you're on trails is that, oh, wait, these are the open spaces that I have been voting for every few years on that ballot box. Oh, that place over there, that's the energy plant that they're talking about converting or whatever. And so that's another bridge to understanding, because it might, I get the book every time it's time to vote. I get the book. I try to read through the issues, but
oh yeah,
there's nothing like actually being on the land and putting together, oh, this is what it means. This is what pollution is. This is what erosion is. Because when runners, when we go on those trails, when they're wet, we like to run around the puddle. Well, that expands the trail and starts to creep into the ecosystem. And then the wildlife so there are all these different ways and avenues into greater understanding within ourselves when we run, and that's another way mindfulness can come into play when we're running, because we're invited into like, oh, pay attention to like, what's going on in my body? How am I feeling right now? Whoa, look at that tree is new or whatever. It opens us to deeper connection with the people that we're with, and also the people maybe that we don't run with. We can come back more relaxed and refreshed to be better people in our relationships at home, to have more compassion for, something that had, prior to you going out for a run, had been unresolved or left hanging when you walked out the door, and also greater understanding for what's happening on the land, who actually is going to be stewarding or taking care of this. Oh, wait, it's in part up to me to learn more about it. And I'm learning by being here on it, by seeing the impacts of foot traffic and, higher numbers of people here. So that's what I mean by building bridges of understanding kind of all around.
Yeah, so many important points there. And thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really important. And, I know you also share our other teammate, Jordan Marie Daniel, a lot of her work about, she does a lot with Rising Hearts and the land acknowledgement piece as well of thinking about whose land that you are on when you are out there. I mean, that's another piece, but, it's as you've said, it's a whole different thing to see, a stake in the ground with a piece of paper that says lot 12 on the east side is going to be developed into, this block of apartments. And you're like, oh, great. Yeah, whatever. But then like you said, when you're there running on it and you see, oh, it's going to go here. It really makes you think differently and think, well, wait, I don't want that to go there. And makes you more, just active and want to actually do something about it. And like you said, read about it and learn of what your part is here. And we've seen some amazing examples over the last few years of, just regular old people coming together and saying, no, corporation, you are not going to do that, and managing to push something through. I mean, it's unrelated, but I was listening to a podcast yesterday about Amazon workers coming together, and they completely shifted the strategy, and they got in Jeff Bezos's ear, and that was just started with 5 women in a room. And so, we never know the power of what we can do. And when it's local to you and you see, like you said, you see the impacts and you start to think about the effects that, even your own foot traffic, but also just you collectively as runners and hikers and everything, it all comes together. Just coming up a little bit, as that was quite deep and profound, what is it in your opinion about running side by someone, where we say like running is telling your secrets to the wind, or like people share and reveal things that they would, you'd never like meet someone and then just talk to them about these quite intimate details, but in running we do. And it's not like you say it and you're like, oh God, why did I say that? Instead you're like, wow, like I feel so connected to this person very quickly, and you feel like, oh, it was good to say that. So what is your opinion on why that is?
Well, one, we are wired for story, right? We are wired to tell our stories because that's a way that we connect with each other. Running, as I mentioned before, it pulls us out of the artifice and the distraction that keeps us from really revealing ourselves. So when we strip that stuff away, our real selves are a lot more easily accessed, right? And when we're running together side by side, that really puts us in sync. We're kind of in this space of resonance with each other, because not only are our bodies are doing similar things. We're hitting a similar rhythm in our stride. We're covering the same terrain together, and we're likely having the same kind of a very similar experience if we're holding the same kind of cadence and we're able to have a conversation. So it's like the context is already set up right there for us to really engage in ways that we truly want to anyway. Because I think fundamentally, for many of us, I won't say everybody, but we deeply want to connect as human beings because we are social creatures. We survive because we have survived as human beings because we have lived together, because we have communicated and supported each other, and we've had to share stories and know about each other and learn about each other in order to really get along and survive and thrive together. And so when we are running together, we're doing a very human thing, that by sharing ourselves with each other. And running friends are very different than, other kinds of friendships. For me and for lots of runners that I know, like whenever I see a running friend, if I see a running friend off of the trail and they're in their regular clothes, I have to do a double take sometimes because, I didn't, but there is some real bonding that happens because we are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we are tired and struggling and sweating. And again, we have more access to what's really going on. And that's what we share. Because I think it's just a natural extension, and the conditions are primed for us to do what we, and to do and be what we really are. at heart, and that is, connected and engaged with each other.
Thank you to Inside Tracker for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Inside Tracker has been a friend of Running for Real and myself for many years now. I love to get my blood work checked with them. And you know what I really enjoy seeing? So each time you get it checked, they will do a point for each on the graph of each of your biomarkers, and you can see over time how things are changing. And they'll tell you if you're trending downwards, if you're trending upwards, or trending towards optimized, or moving towards something that is at risk, or something that needs working on. I really love to see my changes over time and see the areas that I've maybe been slacking in, but also the areas that I am doing better in. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about Inside Tracker first. It is a comprehensive blood test, which you will find your local Quest diagnostics. And by the way, those are everywhere. Although US only, you'll be able to get a detailed analysis of 12 of your key biomarkers. You will get a customized science-backed action plan based on your goals, and it will tell you which foods, supplements, and lifestyle changes you need to make to help you arrive in the optimal zone. It gives you ideas for meal prep, grocery lists, recipe guidance, and more. It really does have so much there. And for me, a few of my recent ones that were low, my vitamin D was low. So it told me, obviously we know about the sun, but it told me about which other things I could include in my diet that would help me to optimize that level, including a type of mushroom, which I didn't know about at the time. It gives you a lot more information if you want to go learn more about that. And there's also plenty of other little features within the website that you're really going to enjoy, or at least I do, if you enjoy learning. Now, Inside Tracker is giving our listeners 25% off. Yeah, 25% off Inside Tracker. And you can get that by going to insidetracker.com/Tina. And you will get that 25% off discount. It's going to be focusing on those 12 key biomarkers that are linked to overall wellness, metabolism, sleep, and energy. The essential plan is that catalyst that you are seeking to understand your body better. So go to insidetracker.com/Tina to learn more.
Sometimes we are tired and struggling and sweating. And again, we have more access to what's really going on. And that's what we share. Because I think it's just a natural extension, and the conditions are primed for us to do what we, and to do and be what we really are at heart. And that is, connected and engaged with each other.
So I can't help but listen to you, hearing you say that. Absolutely agree and feel that. And we all feel that. Everyone listening can feel that. And Kriste, I don't know if you have seen me talking about this, but I've been doing what I call together runs with people, where I record myself running with a microphone and I talk to them and I make them do a body scan, and then check in with each of the 5 senses. And then I have a conversation, like tell them about something, answer a question. And then we do a few other check-ins, and people have been really enjoying them because they say, it feels like I'm running with someone, and that connection piece that's been missing is there. And so we all understand that, whether you've had it through a slightly detached version of that, whether you've had it with running friends and you can still remember what that feels like, or whether you've had that recently. But you can't help but go to about what you were saying about stories, and we need connection, and think, well, this, at least America, but this world is not connected right now. Now, you believe in the power of running for healing. So talk to us about how those two things can be there when all we see and all we hear is how totally polarized and disconnected everyone actually is. Even if you remove the political parts of it, but this, like the technology, the like isolation part, like how does running become a healing presence for us then?
Well, for one thing, it's easy to get overwhelmed when we think about the so-called big picture of what's going on in the entire world. But let's look at ourselves, right? Like, what can I do? What can I control? I can't even control everything that happens in my world, but I can control my responses. I can take myself to the trail. And so I will share. So I was in deep grief at one point, and I lost my mother passed, and I was so out of it. I was lost. I was nowhere. When I tell you I was nowhere, I mean, all I knew was, you know what, I can get to the trail, and I know how to put one foot in front of the other. That's all I know. I give myself permission just to make it to the trail. And then sometimes I would sit in the car for a long time before even getting out. Like, you don't have to get out. Just, if you don't want to, just see what you can do. And so on this one particular day, I sat for minutes, and and there was a physical weight to pain and to grief, like in the body. It's an added layer. And so I got out of the car and went to the trailhead, and I said, you don't have to run. You can just stand here. You can walk, whatever. And so one of the things I often tell people is, don't run. If you have to run with earbuds in, don't run with two, just run with one, because you need to hear what's going on in the world around you. You need to hear what's going on in your body.
Okay, right? Let me pause you there. What if someone says, yeah, but I have the open ear headphones?
Well, if they will allow you to hear a rattler rattling, then okay. Tell yourself whatever you need to tell yourself, but I'm telling you, you will be safer, especially out here where there are rattlesnakes and real wildlife, and wildlife, including the potential stranger danger, So, yeah, all right.
Okay, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know that would have been going through a lot of people's minds, because a lot of people have those headphones.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, do whatever you need to do. Don't turn it up all the way. Well, I can only hear it if it's high, because I have. Hey, all right. So then I'm like, well, you signed the waiver, okay.
Yeah.
I am not the boss of you, but I'm telling you. So anyway. I go out there on this run, and I have both of my earbuds in, because I'm just so nowhere. I can't, I'm like, in your face, universe. I just do your worst, and a friend had told me, he asked me how I was doing, and I said, I'm just nowhere. I'm so lost. And he was like, it would make sense, because the GPS that brought you into the world is not on the planet anymore.
Oh, wow.
And so this is a part central to my story here. So I'm in these earbuds, I'm walking, I'm running, I'm sputtering, and I start to get into a jog. And I see maybe, 5-6 dozen yards ahead of me, somebody turns and is waving his arms. And it's just me and him, like, out on this trail. And I notice this person waving, but I don't respond, because I am so nowhere. I'm like, this person can't see me, because I am lost. You know what I mean? Like, that's what grief will do, like totally take you out of your experience. And so in a moment, I felt like I was just invisible. And then, and it was just a moment, but it was a tremendous moment. And then I came to, and I was like, he is trying to get my attention. And so then I pulled my earbuds out, because he was trying to yell something. And I pulled my earbuds out, and he was saying, snake. And so, and I was like, what, where? And so he was like pointing to the right side of the trail. And sure enough, a few yards up, I'm running. I pull one of those earbuds out, because I'm humbled. I'm humbled now. And Sure enough, there was a rattlesnake coiled up and rattling on the side of the trail. And so when they're coiled, they're in defense mode,
Yeah.
which means they're ready to spring and strike.
Yeah, for sure.
If you get too close. And so as it pertains to healing, I went to the trail because I knew I could get some kind of I could get some sort of bearings there. I could get some sort of grounding there. I could start to feel my body again, and add to that, somebody turned around to get my attention. When does that ever happen? Has that ever happened to you on a trail? Somebody's like far out ahead and turns around to you.
No.
And so I said, this is something that I don't understand, but it is part of the larger orchestration of connection. And how I just said, we care for each other when we're out in these spaces, and that doesn't always happen, but it felt like in that moment there was something larger that turned this man around to get my attention, because I wasn't even aware that he saw me. And so that's like gravy on the experience of just being able to get to a place where I knew that if I just showed up, nature would meet me. Because here's the other thing, like our bodies, for all the motions that we put them through, we are made of the same elements as the earth. And so being able to get to those open spaces really puts us in a very similar kind of resonance as it is with, running side by side. We come into resonance with that runner. We also come into a certain kind of resonance with the earth, like those elements that are in us that are also in the earth. There is something that is unseen that I don't know about, that I don't need to know about. All I needed to know was that if I can get my struggling self to that place, nature would meet me there and she would carry me. That's the healing.
Do you feel the snake was, I don't know what your beliefs or the way that you view the world, but do you feel like that snake was there for a reason that day then?
It's interesting because I've seen a handful of rattlesnakes, and I don't go as far out as that guy was. I probably wouldn't have turned back, just because I would have thought, oh, well, the snake will move on in a few minutes, so there's no need to raise alarm in someone because it'll move. But there was something, yes, absolutely, that was there. I think it ties right into what was happening in my world in that time. Mm-hmm. I thought I was so lost, and I was outside of myself, and just out of I thought I was just disembodied almost, just like I said, lost and nowhere. Mm-hmm. But that snake rattling and coiled up was that very real, immediate reminder to be present. Like, I can still come back. All is not lost. I can be in my life and have my pain. There's room. I don't have to be blown away, but it is in my best interest. It is vitally important to be in my body so that because that is where I am going to be able to live,
Yeah. I would assume it provoke that survival instinct in you that you're lost. You don't know, like you said, you're nowhere. You kind of just in a nothing place, yet something came to you to say, well, I'll take that away from you if you don't want. And it like provoked that. No. Like,
exactly.
Like I still want to be here. Like there's still things for me here. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's an amazing example of that.
Yeah. Saying like, do you really mean that? Do you really mean you're gone? Because I can help you leave your body if you want.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. Yeah. Now, Kriste, as much as I hate to be doing this, kind of wrapping up here, one thing I want to, there's so many other things I want to ask you about. I saw a recent Instagram post of yours. And just by the way, going through this, preparing for this interview, there were so many things I read of yours, words that I just like wanted to cry reading them, because it just resonated so much. And just the work that you're doing is just, we need so many more people just like, not just like you, but that bright light in this world. One thing that I want to end with here is a recent Instagram post you put about finishing this run up a mountain. You said, when we finished, I pointed back up the mountain to remind them of a job well done and how their hard work paid off. No one can deny them that. Congratulations, runners. Why did you feel the need to do that? I mean, I know why, but why are we so bad at looking like something like that, like running up a mountain or just any accomplishment that we have, and actually being able to, stop and take it in, instead of being like, well, I made it up that mountain. Well, but I see a big one over there, so I want to do that.
Well, in this case, like it was a culminating run for this group that I had been working with for the past 6 weeks. And so even with everything that we had done leading up to that moment, and I was telling them at the base of this mountain, like, here's where we put it all together, thinking about your form, thinking about your mental toughness, all this kind of stuff. And they look up and they're like, insert all the like self-doubt and all the things. And so I pointed their attention back up to the top, because it's so easy to forget or to dismiss our own achievements. And because we're so oriented toward going forward, moving on, looking to the future, and when we look back, it's often in, rumination. Why did I do that? Or those were the glory days, or way back when, when I weighed 10 pounds, or whatever. Like, it's something that we've lost, or in some way or another, we've lost when we're looking back. And so when we finished and came back down, I wanted to point out the irrefutable truth that you did that you achieved that I didn't do it for you, that you didn't even believe when you started out that you would get there, that you would climb and make it to the top, but you did. And so now, because you have that evidence, you can feed that to your peanut gallery whenever it shows up. You don't have to struggle against the doubt. You can say, oh yeah, well, I did that. I ran this, like, here is proof. I don't even know how to combat my peanut gallery, but I can point to this proof. And so the peanut gallery has to really work with that. And so that voice can't be as loud next time, because we have the evidence. We have this. Yeah. And so that's why I shared that with them. And sometimes we get to the top. And another thing that I did was I point down to the ant-sized car, in the parking lot before we couldn't see it anymore. Like, you thought you couldn't do it, but look how far you have climbed.
Amazing.
And so it also helps us reframe the way that we look back. It invites us, when we look back, to look back with some reverence or gratitude for what we've been able to do,
Sure.
Not just looking back at, why I didn't do a certain thing or why I can't be who I want to be because that thing happened. Sometimes we predicate the future on the things that we did in the past or didn't do in the past. So we're never planning for the best because it's predicated on the worst.
Yeah, for sure.
But if we continue to do that, now we have something positive to predicate the future on. Like, wow, I fought hard. I earned that. I did it. And maybe next time I go out, I can do it again. Or because I did that, I know I can do something else with as much or more agency.
Yes, thank you so much. And bringing that full circle, we at the beginning of the episode talked about, being present and being with those feelings that you're experiencing. For the listeners, that thing you do, it may be climbing a physical mountain. It may be running your first 5K. It doesn't have to be, I qualified for the Olympic trials or I, ran a 10K in 40 minutes. It does, look at where you started and look at what you have done. And like Kriste said, don't pay attention to those feelings that you are experiencing, that achievement. And don't let the peanut gallery or whatever those doubts are telling you of well, I did great, but other people did this. This is what you have done. And as you said, to look back and see, I didn't even think I could get halfway here, let alone getting here. So I just wanted to remind people of that before they start thinking of well, yeah, I would feel that way if I did something really great. And it's well, you did. Just because it's not an Olympic level, that doesn't make it any less great. Yeah. Okay. Kriste, there are so many things I want to continue to ask you. So we will have to do a part 2. And Kriste and I are going to be doing something probably on Instagram in the future. So be sure to go follow her. Tell people where you can go find you. They can sign up for your newsletter and get a free meditation from you. Tell people where they can go learn more.
I am at KristePeoples.com, which is KristePeoples.com. And I am also on Instagram at Kriste Peoples. Those are the two places where I really, where I spend more time, when I'm not on the trail.
Yes,
you can also find me on the trail.
And you can also find me running alongside Kriste at some point in the future. Stay tuned because I will be doing that. I'm going to call that into my being right now. Kriste, you are such a beautiful, bright light in this world. Thank you so much for your words and just being the incredible human you are. I appreciate you.
Thank you for the same, for being amazing and inspiring and just dogged about bringing this conversation to bear, because we have had some technical challenges, and so I appreciate you just
yes, it was well worth it times a million. So thank you so much, and listeners, stay tuned. We will have a part 2. I can promise you that.
Yay!
Before we end this episode, I just want to take a moment to shout out my podcast editor, Jeremy Nessel, who has done such a wonderful job of looking after my podcast, taking out all the mishaps in the episodes, while still keeping in the vulnerability and the realness and the rawness of the conversation. This is not one of those podcasts where I take out the ums and the ers and the sometimes the delay in words, because I think it's very important to keep that authenticity. We're surrounded by perfected and manicured everything, and I think it's really important that Running for Real stays that way. So thank you to Jeremy for your work. I also want to thank Maria Vargas and Amber Moore, who are also part of my team. They've been a big part of this community and me being able to build this brand. So just want to give them a shout out too. All right, let's get right back to the end of this episode. Oh, there was so much in there that was so Good. I hated to cut that off and I left it to the very last second I could. There was so much I wanted to learn from Kriste, and there will be a part 2 of this conversation. Maybe even by the time you're listening to this, I will have this coming the next week. I might even make it a part 2 that we share the following week. I haven't decided that as of this recording, but I really wanted to share with you just how special of a human being that Kriste is. And I am just so thankful to get to bring her on the show and get to know her a little bit more. Now, I strongly encourage you to go check out Kriste, what she is up to on social media, her website, sign up for her newsletter. It's not an over-the-top newsletter, don't worry. It is just like her. It's wonderful. And you will continue to learn and grow with her. It is, just a great time to get to know her. I want to thank our sponsors for today. That is Tracksmith, Picky Bars, and Inside Tracker. You can go to tracksmith.com and use code TINA15 for $15 off your order of 75 or more. Tracksmith is, I do not know a running company that gives and supports the running community more than Tracksmith. Truly a wonderful company to support them, to support me, and to support yourself. The clothes are just the best, such high quality. I also want to thank Picky Bars for sponsoring this episode. You can go to pickybars.com/Tina to get yourself a 20% off your order. Or if you sign up for the Picky Club, which we do pay for in my household, you can get an additional 20% off on top of the 10, 20 or 30% discount you will get by you joining the Picky Club in the first place. Go to pickybars.com/Tina. And you can go to insidetracker.com/Tina to get 25% off the entire store. That's a huge discount. 25% off. Inside Tracker helps me stay accountable with how my body is doing on the inside, and it can help you too. So go check it out. Thank you so much for listening, my friends. I'll be back with the Together Run on Monday, and then we'll be back with a regular episode next Friday. See you then.